A judge rules the city of North Las Vegas can be held responsible. In a lawsuit filed on behalf of the family of Tiffany Slatsky, the 25-year-old died of an overdose 3 years ago.
Her husband, a then North Las Vegas firefighter, was criminally convicted in her death. And Fox 5's Drew Andre has been following this case. He is live from North Las Vegas City Hall now with an update for us. Drew?
Well, John, the city moved to clear themselves from this lawsuit, but a court ruled that even though Christopher Candido wasn't on the clock, by taking Tiffany Slatsky to his fire station, he was working under the purview of his job. Christopher Candido pled guilty to involuntary manslaughter in his wife Tiffany Slatsky's death. But the Slatsky family has acted to hold the North Las Vegas Fire Department accountable too, and consider a recent federal court ruling by Judge Daniel Albriggs a step in that direction. Tiffany Slatsky, the mother of a young boy, overdosed February of 2020. Instead of calling 911, Candido took her to his North Las Vegas fire station, 23 miles away from their Henderson apartment, and gave her Narcan. The judge wrote Candido's access to the fire station and the supplies with which he treated Tiffany were under the city defendant's control, thus finding that Candido was acting in a way related to the performance of his official duties, ruling the city seemingly allowed free access to medical supplies. Attorneys claim Fire Station 51 had a reputation of being a party station, with numerous employees engaged in the purchase, sale, trade, and/or use of steroids and illicit drugs. The suit filed last year alleges city superior officers and North Las Vegas Fire Department employees were aware of the drug use and either participated in, condoned, or otherwise failed to respond to such activities.
He and others could have and should have done more. They could have gone up and they should have done what they were trained to do. And instead, they were concerned more about their job.
We reached out to the city of North Las Vegas this week. They said they don't comment on pending litigation. Last year, they told Fox 5, while we sympathize with Ms. Slatsky's family, responsibility lies solely with Mr. Candido, who was criminally convicted for Ms. Slatsky's death and is serving his time. At Candido's sentencing in 2021, he said, "I wish I'd been a better man and better husband." Department of Corrections records show Candido was paroled on November 7th after serving his minimum sentence of 16 months. And depositions for this civil lawsuit are coming up soon. That's where both sides will interview possible witnesses who could be possible witnesses if this were to go to trial. Reporting live in North Las Vegas, I'm Drew Andre, Fox 5 News, local Las Vegas.
No other firefighters were criminally charged. Tiffany Slatsky's parents are now the legal guardians of her son.